Good evening, Mr. LaPlante. Mr. LaPlante, good evening.
Hi,
How are you? I'm good. I'm not used to seeing you in. It's good.
in my uniform?
Yeah, it's good.
I had to put it back on. I wanted to hang it up.
So what is that? What?
This marks my 40th year of service to this country.
Wow.
Well, the attacks that,
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yes,
Congratulations.
appropriate, but yeah, this is sad what's going on in our country.
I think everybody.
Not fair to people that are over there right now. Okay.
It's tough. It's tough time. All right, well, good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 15, 2022. The time is 6 p.m. and the regular meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City as Housing Assets Successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Becerra. Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. All right, we're going to move on to our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation is with Pastor Des this evening from Victorville First Church of the Nazarene. Welcome, Pastor. If you'd like to step up to the podium. And if everyone will please stand if you're of a mind and able.
Thank you, Father, for this privilege of gathering and calling for your wisdom in this city of Victorville. Grant us the ability to have wisdom, to be the people who are searching for truth and peace. Your word teaches us that without wisdom, leadership fails. Help us to be knowledgeable, O Lord. Give us the ability to remember those who will follow our footsteps. Give this city of Victorville safety, prosperity, and growth. This I ask in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. And as I don't see Captain Wickham, Mr. Metzler, will you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge?
Everybody, please stand, face the flag, place your hand over your heart, and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest flag in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Des. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. All right, moving on to the presentation of our agenda and any revisions thereto, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions to the agenda.
All right, and council members, any conflict of interest to declare? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the introduction to public comments. And before I do that, Madam Clerk, do we have requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If we can begin with requests from our in-chambers audience first.
Yes, our first speaker. Did you have anything special you wanted to read?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right, so everyone, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your city council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with the council's established policies and procedures and Government Code Section 54957.9. Individuals may speak on agenda items or on issues not posted on the agenda during the public comment section, providing those issues are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Individual speakers may address the council once per public comment period and once per each public hearing item for up to 3 minutes. Additional time may be allocated for appeal hearings in accordance with the city's adopted policy and procedures manual. All testimony is to be directed solely to the council. Although open meeting laws do not permit council members to engage in dialogue with any speaker during the public comment periods, please know your comments and questions may be taken into consideration by council members when discussing the particular agenda item. The presiding officer may briefly respond or have staff respond to statements or questions, or may request that the staff report back to the council at a subsequent meeting. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Individual council members who speak as a member of the public do so without the semblance or presumption of authority derived from her public office and is subject to the same meeting rules of conduct and decorum as other public participants. Whether attending this meeting in person or via Zoom, once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. The speaker will state the item number or numbers that will be addressed or that the subject is a non-agendized matter. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Now, Madam Clerk, thank you.
Yes, our first in-chamber speaker is Roger LaPlante.
Good evening and welcome, Mr. LaPlante.
Thank you. Guten Abend,
Good
Frau
evening.
Bürgermeister. Unserer Stadt Councilor und alle zusammen ist a gute Regierung. I say this tonight to express my First Amendment right to be able to do that in any language. That's the language of my son's mother. May she rest in peace. But we really need to allow our citizens this opportunity to speak in any language, sign language, German, English, Spanish. I'm taking Spanish class, so I will no longer be able to get away with this. So thank you. Tonight is very, very important to me. It's kind of I'm coming out tonight. I'm getting out after 2 years of being stuck in my room, and I'm sick of it. And I'm glad to see all your smiling faces. It's a wonderful thing to be able to resume life. I was wondering if I could get 5 minutes. I know there's nobody else here.
I appreciate that, Mr. LaPlante, but we're going to stay with the 3 minutes. Yes, the
Okay.
3 minutes. Yes, thank you.
All right, let me get down to the point. All right, in 2012, Homeland Security person, I'm not sure what her official title was, Janet Napolitano, basically came out with an official statement and said that the returning combat veterans are the new terrorist threat. That is absolutely not true. I'm here to state that I'm not a threat. I'm here to protect and help life. I'm not here to threaten anybody. Political rhetoric gets out of hand sometimes, but honestly, I put the blame on the government for that, on Janet Napolitano. I think she's some chancellor up at USC now, Berkeley, Golden Parachute. I picked the wrong job. I should have joined y'all in politics when I was a youngin'. Instead of I went to do the grunt thing. I want to apologize to Councilwoman Gomez. I came on strong when I was executive board director for your party. Basically, I was tasked.
Mr. LaPlante, you're free to give an apology, but if you'll address the whole council in that, thank you.
So basically, I wanted to finish the reason I asked for 5 minutes, I wanted to finish what I was interrupted in my last Zoom meeting broadcast. It's getting bad. There's a counselor on this dais that called the sheriff's department when I emailed her a death threat that I got. I've been getting it for 6 years. And she said that there was racism in her party. And I basically wanted to acknowledge that with that email. But she called the police on me, man. And I'm very, very kind of stuck in my.
Member Gomez.
Can I-
Oh, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Yes,
Has it been 3 minutes?
yes. Point of order.
Okay, thank you. So there's no point of order to be made as the chair has.
Yes,
made no
I have
ruling.
a point of order. Did you address Blanca? I'm sorry, I was confused.
No, I
Oh,
just didn't hear
okay.
what was said. Yeah.
I guess my time's up.
So
1 more minute.
I can't do it because then I'll have to do it for everyone. But Mr. LaPlante,
First Amendment. It's the first one.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. LaPlante. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional in-chamber speakers.
Yes, I would like to speak as
Thank-
well.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. If you'll proceed to the podium. And if you'll let us know which item or items you wish to speak to, or if it's a non-agendized matter.
Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. Can't hear myself, but
It's not
um,
a little louder.
I'd like to just say happy Valentine's to everyone. It's nice to see humanity unite once again. And I felt honored to see each one of your faces and coming back to work, and to have an audience of a minimum of 2 people, but it's more than 0. So I'm very happy today. I said hi to a lot of you. Personally, the ones that I didn't, it's not that I didn't want to say hi, I'm saying hi now in this fashion. I would like to address the masks. We're not wearing any masks. The masks for February 15th were uplifted by the governor. So it's great to see a smile every time I'd go out. People didn't see me with a mask mostly. And when they didn't, they said, keep smiling. So I think to see each one of your faces smiling today brings a lot of joy to each one of us. I think despite the fact that this is a political ground, a lot of the times we fail to acknowledge that we're here for an existence and a purpose beyond self. And sometimes we may not bring that to the fore, and we may get enveloped in self. So that's personally something that I have to say for myself as well. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to have my 3 minutes, but I've exhausted my time, even though I still see my time running. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional in-chamber speakers. I
Yes,
do
but-
have Zoom speakers.
Thank you. So that concludes our in-chambers comment period, and we'll move on to the Zoom requests.
Our first Zoom speaker is Amanda Bell.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Bell. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm with A Greater Hope, and we are a Victorville-based nonprofit organization serving children in foster care and also adults who are in need of child abuse prevention and treatment services. And I wanted to speak about the HUD Consolidated Plan for 2023 to 2027 and the annual plan for 2022 to 2023. And to let you know that Greater Hope is providing vital behavioral health care services, counseling to children in foster care. Due to lack of funding, right now we can only serve half of the 177 precious children placed in our home. So we are honored to be considered for a grant to be able to serve more of those children, because while we have 177 children placed in our homes, and those are across the county of San Bernardino, 87.5 of them are served in the city of Victorville. We are a Victorville-based nonprofit. We are changing lives, and we're so grateful for your consideration of our grant request to increase those behavioral healthcare services to our children who need it most. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk,
Our next speaker is T. Gillespie.
welcome.
Good evening, council members. My name is Tiffany Gillespie, and I'm a Director of Administrative Services with A Better Way. And on behalf of our board, our staff, and our new ED, Regina Weatherspoon Bell, and she does apologize for not being here tonight. She's attending our first board meeting, so she will be here for future meetings. But A Better Way would like to thank the City of Victorville and Liliana Collins for your continued support to our domestic violence agency. The value of the funding we receive the past years and that you consider us for has always allowed us to continue our services to the community of the High Desert. We were
Ms. Gillespie, you just cut out. Are you still with us? Ms. Gillespie? Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move on and we will come back to Ms. Gillespie.
Certainly. Our next speaker is Kathy Bordenaro.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your support of our program in the past. I'm Kathy Bordenaro. I'm president of Assistance League of Victor Valley. We are currently celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, and we're really proud of all the programs that we do that help our communities. Operation School Bell is our signature program. It's the program that we're requesting funding for. It's a unique, it's unique, and we believe one that is not duplicated in the Victor Valley. Through Operation School Bell, students in kindergarten through 12th grade receive new school clothing. We have agreements with all of the school districts. We work closely with the liaisons at the school who know the students and are aware of the needs of the families. They refer students to us. We then schedule them for a shopping event where they will choose school appropriate clothing. Currently, we're shopping at JCPenney's in the mall. The managers and the employees are dedicated to helping our families enjoy a successful shopping event with kids. The younger students spend $100. The 6th through 12th grade students receive $125. They can purchase anything that they need that is school appropriate. They purchase jackets, pants, tops, hoodies, shoes, socks, underwear. The Assistance League members are all volunteers who are at the shopping events, making sure clothing fits, children are receiving their full benefits, and they are also at the cash registers to pay and distribute grooming kits. At the end of the evening, we're the lucky ones. We receive the hugs and the big smiles from the kids. As a volunteer helping students shop, it's often heartbreaking to hear that a child only has a few clothes, holes in their shoes, or no warm jacket. We're so grateful that we can be there to provide those essential needs. We believe if a child is appropriately dressed, they have more self-confidence, they interact and participate more among their peers, and they do better in school. We are aware that homelessness and food insecurity is a great need in our community. But through our Operation School Bell, we provide the school clothes, shoes, and grooming kits, and that saves the parents from having to purchase those items. Families assure us that we are making a difference, and they share that they are grateful that they can use their income for rent, utilities, and food. Each year, more than 1,500 students receive new school clothing through our program. More than 200 of them are from the Victorville schools. Our vision is to meet the essential needs in our community so families flourish. We like to think that we're transforming lives and we're strengthening our community. I want to thank you for considering Assistance League of Victor Valley, our Operation School Bell program, for your Cdbg funding for this year. And as I've said, you have helped us in the past, and we're very, very grateful for all the help we've always received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bordenaro. Madam Clerk, can we try and see if we have Ms. Gillespie back?
I do not see her. I saw her a minute ago, but I do not see her now.
Okay, we'll keep trying. All right.
Our next speaker is Eileen Garcia.
Welcome, Ms. Garcia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak this evening. I'm the CEO of Inland Fair Housing and Mediation Board. We provide fair housing services and landlord-tenant services to residents of Victorville. And I just want to tell you that I'm so appreciative that Council funds fair housing services and landlord-tenant services so that residents of Victorville have access to these services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Andra Charbonnet.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I work with Partners Against Violence, formerly known as San Bernardino Sexual Assault Services. And I just want to talk about some news articles that were released in 2021. A Victorville man, 27, arrested for molesting a minor, more victims possible. 56-year-old Victorville man arrested on suspicion of continuous sexual abuse of a child. And then a Victorville man, 24, arrested for sexual abuse of a 4-year-old girl. Articles like these and the clients we serve represent only a glimpse of the sexual violence occurring within our community. So on behalf of Partners Against Violence, we want to acknowledge and thank the council for recognizing the need for our services and for supporting our agency in our efforts to minimize and stop sexual violence among young children, teens, and entire families. Our Victorville office team, comprised of only 3 advocates, diligently work to provide nearly 100 direct services on a monthly basis. Additionally, our community outreach, inclusive of trainings, events, education, and programs, reached approximately 1,000 people last year, and we see no difficulty exceeding this number in 2022. As we offer intervention services, awareness, and prevention programs, our in-person, remote, and hybrid formats help sustain existing programs, allowing us to meet the challenges within our community and those due to COVID-19. We are launching a virtual teen education pilot program, beginning collaborations with selected schools. Program introductions have begun and meetings are being scheduled with Hook Junior, Silverado, Victor Valley, and University Prep high schools. So far, in earlier results of our launch, 80% of 100 students viewed, surveyed, and expressed the teen program was liked, usable, and beneficial. We continue relationships with our community partners to facilitate programs to their served populations and staff, such as with our local domestic violence agencies and human trafficking agencies as well. We host and participate in community events, affording us opportunities to present messages of sexual non-violence. There is much more that I can say about the work that Partners is doing within the city of Victorville, but time doesn't permit. But what I will say is that we are committed to the continuance of this important work, and we'll do so with compassion, knowledge, and expertise. And as always, we appreciate and thank you in advance for any support you are willing to give. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Charbonnet. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Susan's iPad.
Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Susan Padilla Conway from God's Hand Extended, which is a local nonprofit. We have been in the high desert for approximately 60 years. And first of all, we would like to thank you for the past grants that you have given to us. We're simply amazed by the incredible things God has done because of you and trusting us with these grants. We were able to establish a clothing closet and a food delivery program to help homeless, housing insecure, and food insecure students attending Victor Valley College in our community. We are able to provide basic needs, clothing, food, home essentials, and furniture for students that we finally get placed into housing. These students have been able to receive free clothing for everyday life to wear to school and to job interviews. Our clothing closet has clothing for the men, the women, the kids, all the students, and the families. We were also able to provide food for the students that are attending, and we've added them to our food giveaway, and we do provide them healthy meal groceries. And we're also available to deliver food on an emergency basis because we do home delivery. Now, being hands-on at Victor Valley College daily, we have been made aware of the additional needs. So we would like to thank you for consideration of the additional grants that would be available coming up in the near future. So we would like to thank you for your support from the bottom of our hearts, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Padilla-Conway. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Joy Juarez.
Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I work for Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Redlands Riverside. We've been in the Inland Empire for over 50 years. And we've operated after school programs for kids in Victorville for the last several years. We do after school programs at 2 affordable housing complexes in Victorville. One is called Impressions and one is called Northgate. They're kind of, I'm sure you're probably familiar, but they're on kind of opposite ends of Victorville. And so most of the kids that we serve are, meet the moderate to low income demographic. And this is the first year that we've applied for Cdbg funding through the city of Victorville for our programs at those 2 sites. It would be for our Triple Play program, which is like a signature Boys and Girls Club program. And it teaches school-age kids how to incorporate exercise into their daily lives and also maintain or learn how to maintain their nutrition. And I think especially in, the age of COVID-19, that's even more important to teach kids, how to stay healthy, and also to interact with each other, because part of the program also includes recreational or social recreation, which is, I think, even more important because, they kind of seem like they're going back and forth between in-person and virtual schooling. So anyway, like I said, so the funding, if we were granted funding, would be for this program at our 2 sites in the city of Victorville. And we're very grateful to the city for giving us the opportunity to apply for the funding, which would really help us serve more kids in Victorville. And I think our programs are especially critical in this day and age because obviously kids need a safe, fun place to go after school. And these programs are offered at the complexes where they live. So anyway, thank you very much for your time and thank you for your consideration of funding.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Christina Kennedy.
Welcome, Ms. Kennedy.
Hi, good evening, council members and Mayor Jones. Thank you for tonight's opportunity to speak on behalf of our program, the High Desert Food Collaborative Food Bank. I'm Christina Kennedy, President of High Desert Second Chance, grant writer and program director of the High Desert Food Collaborative Program. We are a network system of currently 93 MOU signed partners, feeding agencies, and community service providers. Of the 93 partners, 29 partners serve and are located in the city of Victorville. There's sometimes a confusion between the definition of a food bank and food pantry. The food bank provides supplemental provisions. This is free of cost supplies to partner agencies. In doing so, food pantries are able to distribute supplies out to the community To families experiencing food insecurities, partners can better utilize fundings, local resources, cut down on expenses that can include wear and tear on vehicles, rentals, manpower, and traveling outside of the high desert to retrieve supplies. For example, prior to High Desert Food Collaborative, many partners traveled to San Bernardino, Riverside, and LA County for supplies. Our MOU provides a structured capacity building program for each of our partners to adhere by. Collaborative partners are required to attend mandatory HDFC teaching meetings. All High Desert Food Collaborative partners are required to have an active 501c3 in good standing, liability insurance, food handler's card for each active administrative member to safely handle and distribute supplies, and pantry sites must meet county health department guidelines. What is unique about the High Desert Food Collaborative Food Bank from others is that each of our partners are stakeholders in the program. They are invested in the food bank as much as we are invested in our partners. In 2020, we were asked to speak at a health symposium hosted by Providence St. Mary's. During that time, we were highlighted due to the uniqueness of our program. And here's where it is. Did you know a food bank can determine and impact the health and well-being of the community it serves based on the product it provides to participants? As a food bank, we are particular in the products we purchase to distribute out to partner agencies. Our supplies tend to be 60% fresh produce and 20% shelf-stable goods, more in line with low sodium, heart healthy products, and 20% cold products that can include dairy and meats. Your support in previous years' funding has made it possible for our program to grow and continue to sustain itself, especially during the last 2 years' impact of COVID. The value of the funding provided supplies to over 30,000 residents in the city of Victorville alone. And I just want to say thank you all so much for your support and the opportunity to share our work.
All right, well, thank you very, very much, Ms. Kennedy. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Darlene Bucola.
Welcome to our meeting.
Good evening. I also work with High Desert Second Chance as the program administrator for the Eviction Protection Housing Assistance Program, which was launched in 2021. We wanted to thank the council for the grant that we received for this program and to let you know how it has been going. For the last several months, High Desert Second Chance has been approached by Victorville residents looking for help with a problem nobody wants to face, which is eviction. We have been able to help these residents of Victorville with the grant by assisting them financially or by helping them apply for the state program, Housing is Key. We are an advocate for them with their landlord or management company. Sometimes they just come in very overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They're panicked because they received a 3-day notice, and we assist them. We calm them down. We help them to apply for the program, either ours or for the Housing is Key. And actually what we've noticed, initially, we started to help them apply to Housing is Key first monetarily because they cover more of their rent than our program is able to do. But what we found is that there are so many people and so much need that Housing is Key is becoming so overwhelmed that the backlog is so much that now we're going to go ahead and apply first with our program and then help them apply for Housing is Key for the rest of it. So we just wanted to let you know that we are so grateful for the help that you've given us, that has helped so many people even thus far. We have a single mom with a disabled son who received our assistance and was crying on the phone to us. She was so grateful for help. So we're hoping to continue with that and the next season here. So we just want to thank you for the funding and ask for continued help so that we can partner in keeping homelessness out of Victorville. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Vida Bazarin.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone, council, and hi, can you hear me?
Yes, although it sounds like there might be a little bit of background noise. Go ahead and
Can
try
you
again.
hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Mayor Deborah Jones and council members. I was speaking today on behalf of Family Assistance Program and the After School Youth Drop-In Center for Old Town Victorville. We recently submitted an application for Cdbg funding. This application would continue to support the case management position that we were able to open up thanks to the support that we received from previous Cdbg funding. The case management position really expanded the program as it allowed for the professional to work with the youth beyond after school programming like tutoring, but actually help them develop goals and a smart planning process for their long-term goals as they transition into adulthood. This also created the opportunity for the agency staff, the youth and the case manager to open up different positions to work with the local youth and be able to better serve the neighborhood. So we just want to thank you for the previous funding that we have received. And as you guys continue to work towards distributing funding, we hope that you continue to keep us in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Sean Smith.
Good evening. Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dr. Sean Smith, and I am the Executive Director of Simba Center. We are a faith-based 501c3 nonprofit based here in Victorville, providing medical services to uninsured, low-income, and homeless high desert residents. First, we'd like to thank you all very much for approving funding for our organization for the past 2 years. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been providing vital medical services for the homeless through COVID-19 compliance and testing and contact tracing for Victor Valley Rescue Mission, High Desert Homeless Services, the Illumination Foundation, A Better Way. In addition, we've also provided services to High Desert Second Chance to mitigate COVID-19. We have been providing these services, and over the past 2 years, we have noticed that there has been a significant decrease in behavioral health services for the clients that has been a barrier to helping them gain functional independence. And so this year we are applying for Cdbg funding to implement a behavioral health program for all the homeless shelters we are providing services for. We thank you so much for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Chupi Brandon.
Good evening, Mr. Brandon.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's wonderful to see your guys' faces again. I'm coming here to you guys tonight. I believe you guys were talking about body cams the last meeting, and I just wanted to make a suggestion on what type of one. I believe the Axon body cam, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that company, but to be that one would be the best one. And our neighboring cities and whatnot have those ones, like City of Barstow and a couple cities in the Inland Empire, and our neighboring counties have this type of body cam. And to me, it'd be the best on our deputies out there, especially with this body cam. If a deputy pulls his gun or his taser, or if a deputy activates his emergency lighting system, that body cam will activate and save the previous 30 seconds. And also I wanted to talk about if the city increasing street sweeping and more cleanups for the city of Victorville. And that is it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brandon. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional online speakers.
All right, and do we have Ms. Gillespie back?
I've seen somebody named Tiffany come in and out, but she's no longer in the Zoom room.
All right, so we've had quite a number of speakers by Zoom this evening. So we're going to go ahead, Madam Clerk, if you'll set the timer for 1 minute this evening to assist any members by Zoom that may wish to speak and might be having technical difficulties. This will give some assistance. And then also for Ms. Gillespie and any others, we're going to have a public hearing here shortly on this the issue of CDBG grants, et cetera. And so, Ms. Gillespie might have an opportunity to chime in then, or any other speaker.
One minute is up and I have no additional speakers.
All right, thank you very much. So with that said, the public comment period is now closed and the chair brings the item back to the council. We're going to now move to our first business in order, which is public hearings, beginning with item number 1. This is the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office of Community Planning and Development, grants required public hearing for fiscal year 2022-2023 through 2026-2027, Consolidated Plan, and fiscal year 2022-2023 Annual Action Plan. Mr. Metzler, will you kindly tee up the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, this item is effectively the kickoff for us in proceeding with the development and ultimate adoption of 2 documents. First, a 5-year consolidated plan, and the second document being your annual action plan. As you know, the CON plan is intended to serve as a plan that describes our community development priorities for fiscal years 22-23 through 26-27. That's the current planning timeframe for this document. And the annual action plan is the document that serves as your planned expenditure framework that is used to achieve those goals that are laid out in the 5-year plan. Accordingly, this item is the opportunity for the public, as many had just spoken, to demonstrate how they can assist the city in achieving the CON plan goals. Currently, it's estimated that the entitlement through Cdbg is in the order of about 1.9 million. We've commenced with the application process, which typically starts in December, solicited the applications. We'll actually be convening the Cdbg committee shortly to start reviewing those applications, ultimately bringing back a recommendation before this body for final action on the annual action plan. So with that, this item has been authored by your city planner, Mr. Scott Webb. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
That the City Council conduct a public hearing to receive citizen, agency, and prospective applicant comments regarding the city's needs, goals, and funding priorities for development of the fiscal year 2022, 2023 through 2026, 2027 Consolidated Plan and fiscal year 2022 to 2023 Annual Action Plan.
All right, thank you. So before opening the public hearing, Council, are there any technical questions for clarification? We'll begin with Member Becerra. Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes. For this item, so there's a fiscal impact we're talking about HUD CPF grant requirements for this public hearing for several years. And I was wondering, for what years will the fiscal impact be in place? Somewhere in that document, I read that the impact isn't now, but we can foresee it. But it wasn't declared within the reporting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. So at a point in time, there will be a fiscal impact related to the eventual award of funds. At this point in time, we're at the very introductory stages where we're actually taking testimony from the public to help facilitate our ultimate development of an action plan. When we actually bring an item back for the council to consider in the form of appropriation, fiscal impact will be created because the funds aren't available until the beginning of the fiscal year, the new fiscal year, you'll expect to see as a part of a budget, a fiscal impact on both the revenue and expenditure side. Those two items should match up and cancel each other out and make it cost neutral. But you will effectively see the appropriation being set by budget as we do typically in every budget year.
So is that June 2022?
The fiscal year starts July 1st, 22.
Okay. And what is the city doing to ensure that there is equal amounts of diversity when it comes to multifamily housing in neighborhoods where incomes are not under the federal poverty guideline?
Well, that is certainly something we have to take into account. That's a large part of why these funds are actually allocated to entitlement cities like ourselves to address, among other things, affordable housing. So it is part of the overall administrative effort in reviewing the applications and making sure it's consistent with the actual 5-year plan.
And will the city in any near future be considering the needs for small unit housing, such as implementation of shipping containers as used for housing for those individuals who meet the federal poverty-stricken guideline as members in society?
I suspect we can consider it if there were an application to be submitted connected to that type of a project. But I think your question is more so related to land use planning, so it's likely more so found either in your housing element or in your general plan.
And what lax rules are there for the city to consider in implementation of upcoming years? For instance, this question is in the means of not exhausting any of the costs. But it's my understanding that in the city of Victorville, like other cities, there's these amenities that are added to housing, any type of multi-housing. And what that does, it creates individuals coming to build for affordability. It's not cost effective, so they end up leaving and not producing anything in the city of Victorville. What are we doing so that that is not the case consistently here, if that were the case in the past?
Well, certainly speaking to the rules aspect of the question, we do have a number of laws that fall under the Code of Federal Regulations that we have to adhere to in the administration of the entire program. As to the latter part, again, I think that's more so related to a general planning land use related question. And that's something that we accommodate through our land use planning efforts. Again, to the extent there is an application to us connected to this program where there's an affordable housing project seeking some of the program funds that are available to further affordable housing, that's something certainly staff can consider and make recommendations to the committee and then ultimately to the council.
Thank you. With the redistricting of the lines, were the HUD areas affected, or were they afforded any ARPA funds to expand housing for very low, moderately low, and low areas within the HUD areas?
Your time is up.
And I'm thinking that probably does go beyond the scope of the item because we're doing the CPD grants. And I think that goes more to land use.
Yeah, and I struggled with the question, trying to understand the connection with districts. I'm not sure I understand the question, so I'd have to ask for it to be asked again.
Go ahead, Member Gomez.
Yeah, so I just figured if the boundaries changed and there was more boundaries created that affect the 3 different areas that Victorville has as being funded by HUD.
The funding from HUD is earmarked for the city at large and does not have anything to do with the districts, as I understand the question, relative to the district election process that we went through. More specifically, though, there is a map on page 26 of the agenda that actually outlines that notwithstanding the funds being earmarked for the city at general, we do have to ensure that they are expended to benefit target areas within the city that are defined target areas based upon census tract.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, technical questions?
No, ma'am, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I have none. And so with that said, the chair is going to go ahead and open the public hearing for public testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have requests to speak?
Yes, Roger LaPlante.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. LaPlante.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Victorville City Council. I volunteer for the homeless task force because I had a lot of experience. I used to be a homeless veteran. I had a lot of experience with that, so I thought I could help out. My 3 years, almost 3 years on the task force, I identified a problem that I announced through the task force was the lack of low income housing. That's a big problem. That maximizes our homeless problem. A lot of people are blessed. We have pensions. Some people don't have that. And it's a really sad thing to see combat veterans down in the riverbed. That's your homelessness problem in a nutshell because it's too costly to live here now. We need to do things on a city level through these Cdbg grants, working with private entities, real estate companies, to do whatever we can. We have a great asset in I always called it George, Southern California Logistics Air Base. That's a jewel for this city. Why we continue to allow the housing over there to just fall apart and not take care of anything and just reject anything else for low cost housing boggles my mind. But we have opportunities. I don't understand why we can't come together and initiate a housing program that we can put not just veterans, but citizens of Victorville, residents of the city in these cargo containers. I think that's a great idea. I've studied tiny homes for veterans. We had a plan with the homelessness task force to use the model of Kansas City's homelessness program for tiny homes. We can do this. We're doing a great job on our homeless program right now. I think it's elevating. I think it's something that we can really help our citizens out of a bind and get them into low cost housing. But that's going to take effort on all of our parts, state, federal, local governments. It's going to take all of us. And I asked, so these grants, can we find out a way if we can get some grants to get some low cost housing? I saw on the planning commission, one of the commissioners was asking, why not high cost housing? That's not the issue. Low cost housing is the issue. Nobody can afford to live here. You know, it's talking about higher cost housing. The mayor over at Atlanta was bragging about he's getting $500,000 a unit now. We need to reverse that trend, and we need to help our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. LaPlante. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional speakers.
All right, with that said, will you please set the timer for 30 seconds in the event that anyone would like to speak on this and is having some difficulty?
Madam Mayor, 30 seconds has lapsed and there are no additional speakers.
All right, thank you very much. All right, with that said, the chair closes the public hearing and brings this item back to the council. And it seems to me with that, we have fulfilled the recommendations and the requirements for this item. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next business in order, which is the consent calendar. That's items 2 through 12. And at this time, a motion is in order for the council and the council acting on its various boards of directors to approve action on consent calendar items 2 through 12 in accordance with the recommendations presented on the agenda.
I'd like to comment and questions for 2, 10, and 11.
All right. And since you've done that, council members, any other council members wishing to make requests to comment briefly? All right. Member Gomez, go ahead with item number 2 first.
For 2, my question was, does the city not have ample maintenance skilled workers in the temporary positions to fill internal hiring rather than the proposal of recommendation of those staff that assert the recommendations? That's the first question. The second question for that is.
Hold on. So let's let staff answer the first one, and then Member Gomez, I want to make sure that we're keeping this tight, because this is really meant for minor clarification, and I don't want it to appear to our audience that there's kind of an end run around pulling the item for separate consideration. So we'll go ahead with the first question, Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm not sure I understand the question in the context of this particular item. Item number 2 is dealing with the reduction of landscaping securities. Nothing to do with our staff or the provision of our staff in conducting or providing landscaping services. More so, this item is related to a new tract having developed in our community that had built landscaping to be ultimately a part of a landscape maintenance assessment district. And this is just reducing the securities associated with the improvements, which is actually prescribed under code. So I probably need a better clarification as a question relating to this item.
Yes, it is. We are asked to accept the work for maintenance, which infers that someone must be doing the maintenance. So I asked, why do we not have someone internally doing the maintenance work after the reduction of what's going to happen with the process of the faith performance bond? So that's why I asked that question.
Once the landscaping is fully assumed by the Landscape Maintenance Assessment District citywide, we are relying on a contract for pretty much all of the LMADs throughout the city. So we're relying on contract landscaping services, not city services to maintain the LMADs.
Thank you. That's the reason why I asked the question, because I didn't know we did not have enough. But let me go on to the next question for the next item.
That would be number 10.
Number 10, will the city manager be reporting back to the council in open meetings of the intent of the actions taken before or after decision-making processes?
Relative to this item, unless there's a need to bring something back, I don't anticipate anything more to be discussed after we take action on this item.
And who will the city manager consult with in regards to any decisions related to the power purchase agreement?
I rely on staff. I rely on specialty counsel. I rely on professional consulting services to advise on these types of matters.
And can the city or its decision makers and legislators be held responsible for any actions that are taken?
Okay, council member, I'm going to ask at this point that if you want to ask further questions on this item, because this is well beyond questions for minor clarification, that you move to pull the item for separate consideration.
It's not gonna be seconded or motioned, so.
Well, we don't know that, but you're welcome to give
No,
it a go.
I do. That's why I want to read the question to the record, and if it's
Okay,
beyond the
if you'll
scope.
move on to item number 11.
So take such action since it is vague language. If so, how will the city consider mitigating any future liability?
Is this
from
item number
such
11, Member Gomez?
Is there a plan in place?
Okay, we're moving on to item number 11, or we're going
Or
to move on for
number
a motion?
11, so 10 was placed on the record verbatim. I'm going to move now to 11. 10 was not responded to. My questions for 11 is, are these streets in the city of Victorville? And if so, are they at least, I'm presuming that they might be boundaries that we could recuse ourselves, but I'm not sure.
The streets associated with the PUD under this second reading of the ordinance are in the city of Victorville.
So if there were within any of the council's 6 feet, would we have to recuse ourselves before we cast a vote? I just want to understand if that's the case.
That would have happened when the first reading came. It would have been very clear. No one at that time recused themselves for those reasons. So,
Okay, so we're going to assume that that's the case. The second question to this, is this decision incorporating the need for the intent of SB2 housing affordability?
okay, again, we're going to move on because this is not a question for minor clarification. This is actually going into depth on the agenda item. So we're going to move on. At this point, the chair invites a motion.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Yes, staff's recommendation.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to our next business in order, which is written communications, beginning with item number 13. This is notification of intent to comply with Senate Bill 1383. Mr. Metzler, will you introduce the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, Senate Bill 1383 is a bill that we've been having to attend to and deal with and plan for. And altogether, I think the simplest way to characterize SB 1383 is that it's intended throughout the state of California to reduce methane emissions from our landfills. And if you don't know, landfills are very traditional in actually forming methane gas through the decomposition of organic matter that gets deposited to those landfills. It's the state's goal to divert organic matter to those landfills and recapture them in a cleaner way. And so in this particular item, it's been slow to roll out in large part because rules being developed by CalRecycle have been slow to come out, but there is a framework that we do have to plan for, and that framework is to have a plan actually executed, and our plan currently is to have something rolled out in the summer of 2023. This item particularly expresses our intent to comply by describing what we think that plan will look like when we actually execute it in the summer of 2023. I think the simplest way to characterize this for the public's benefit is that we expect, resultant from developing the program and rolling it out, that there's going to yield an additional trash can curbside at our residence. And effectively, the way it will look currently, it's viewed that your blue bin will remain the recycle bin. Your green bin will actually turn into the organics bin, where it's intended to be used specifically for green waste and food waste. And then a black bin will be rolled out for the trash that's actually intended to go to the landfill. So that's something that's forthcoming. This item, with the approval by the council tonight, will actually express our intent to comply with 1383 and allow us to continue to work with our trash hauler, Burtec, to actually cost out and develop the program. The author on this item, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, is Doug Matthews, your Director of Public Works and Water. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, will you now please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council adopt resolution number 22-013, approving the notification of intent to comply with SB 1383 and authorizing the city manager or his designee to submit the notification of intent to the California Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. And this time we're going to begin again, actually, with Member Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, eventually, when this gets started in 2025, when it goes full, even before that, there's a possibility there is going to be an increase in our trash bill, correct?
We should expect an increase in the trash bill. Yes, I hate to say it, but what this program, what this new law does is, with the addition of the third can, it's also going to require a separate dedicated trash hauling unit also So there are going to be increased costs associated with the compliance with this bill.
But this Senate bill was passed to us. Yes, you have a way to tuck in there, but when this Senate bill talk, it's up to the cities now to pass on the cost to their citizens.
We are obligated to comply, and where you likely will see this cost being passed through is through our rate planning process. And about this time next year is when we envision bringing something back in the form of rate planning. And we're hopeful between now and then to get a better sense of cost, working with our trash hauler Burtech to get a better sense of what that's gonna be.
Do we know when the Senate bill went to the floor?
I thought it got approved in 2016.
So we've been, yes, it was. You're right. Thank you very much. In 2016. So between 2016 and now, we've been doing everything we can to figure out how this program's going to work, correct?
We have, and we're still figuring things out. We had explored some alternatives. In fact, I should identify that we have developed a program and expanded a facility at the MRF where we're actually attending to organics treatment. We actually have a food waste program in place that's already rolled out to our commercial restaurants. And we actually do direct delivery, pickup and delivery from those locations. And we do actively haul organic food waste and green waste to the MRF. So we're actively doing it. That was effectively our pilot on a smaller scale, but it allowed us to show our intent to comply. But now we have to roll that program out citywide. And so this is the intent to take that next step to actually taking it to the residential curb stops.
Thank you very much to Mr. Matthews and his crew for very well written report. Explains everything. Thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Member Gomez.
Yes. How can this new law be avoided with these extra costs? By these extra costs, is there like something like do it yourself rather than having the city mitigate the needs of the residents? Do we have several options, like someone full service, others self-service?
No, there's nothing envisioned like that at this time. The best vision we can develop is similar to the service that's already in place, which is an actual hauling service going doorstop. And I believe that's even prescribed in the code as a requirement to participate in that service.
So when the city facilitates something of this nature and a resident or two, or maybe a whole neighborhood decides that they can self-direct, would that be a reduction in cost or a discount in cost, or will the services still be 100% the cost of whether they're participating or not?
Residents would be required to participate in the cost.
There would be no proration, right?
No.
And how much control do we and the state have over the indexing that I've seen the city in the past look when it comes to bringing services along with Burtech? Do you understand the question?
I don't, not indexing. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So typically the city of Victorville has used Orange County as its API indexing, which is very expensive when it comes to a lot of the fiscal impacts that we have in our city in Victorville. What indexing are we going to be using in terms of trying to make sure we bring that schedule of fee, whether it's nominal or non-nominal?
The CPI that we use, and I believe Burtech uses the same because they're in the same MSA as we are, which is the Ontario, San Bernardino, Riverside MSA, I believe is what it is.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that? I missed what you said.
We would index, as I believe Burtech would index off the same MSA, which is the Ontario, San Bernardino, Riverside Metropolitan Service Area.
What does MSA stand for?
Metropolitan Service Area.
And CPI?
You can call it CPI. Yeah.
Consumer Price Index?
It's comparable.
So I'm
It's
sorry, there was
typically
a side
attached.
conversation. I didn't know if you were addressing me or not. Would you repeat what you said, CPI?
You can use the term CPI as synonymous with the MSA index.
Okay. And has the city done workshops for the community to bring awareness besides the outreach of mailers that would make it obvious for us, but not for the general public?
We have done quite a bit, especially as it relates to rolling it out to our large food users, restaurants, schools, for example. Certainly as we move forward in developing this program and then ultimately rolling out, there's going to have to be a large outreach effort accompanying it so that there's greater awareness about where we're headed with trash and hauling services.
And last question, can the city negotiate the MSA and the CPI for the benefit of our community members' pockets?
Yes, and that would be part of our negotiation of the hauling agreement with Burtec.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, after listening to Councilwoman Becerra's inquiries, I have a natural question, formulated a newer question. Do we have a rough estimate on the cost increase for residents as we roll out this new program?
I don't believe we do at this time because we've been researching a number of options and we've just recently firmed up our view of which option we're going to have to go with, which is the additional hauler and the additional can. We'd actually looked at different technologies. So I'm not aware that we have gotten far enough to actually get a cost estimate at this time. Ms. Davidson, I know you've been heading this up and maybe something's developed recently that you're aware of that I'm not.
No, we are not at a point where we have an estimated cost impact.
Okay, I guess that just means we need to expect to pay more, dig down and save. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so this is Cal Recycle brought regulations to us, I think, a year beyond when the expectation was. And so for all of the municipalities in California, we've had to wait for that, and we've had to really compress our time to come up with, the plans. This is an extraordinarily complex issue. So in thinking about all of that, because this deals with businesses as well as residents. So where do you think we are in terms of pulling it all together? Do you think we're at 75% of the?
I wouldn't say 75%. I think there's still a lot to be developed. We just have a small fraction of the community serviced by actually picking up the restaurant and the school district food waste. I think what we know now is that the model that we've put in place, that's effectively the model that we're going to roll with. But it's hard to answer that question percentage-wise because now we've got to figure out what it means going citywide with respect to the way our community is set up and the way our pickup schedules are set up. We've got to work with the hauler to figure out what capital investment is going to have to be made in additional trucks on the road, cans, of course, and hoping that we can get the right mix of feedstock for the composting that occurs. So I wouldn't say 75%, but we at least have a path forward where I think we can achieve the goal by summer of 2023 and have something rolled out. Okay. I would say probably towards the latter part of this year, we should have some sense of at least what the investments are going to have to be from the hauler in terms of their capital purchases to where we can probably start translating that into a cost for the resident.
Okay.
This time next year with the rate planning likely to be occurring at this time next year, we should have a much clearer picture of what that looks like.
And then so with regard to the rate planning, we're going to have to do a formal rate study, I would imagine.
That's correct. And correct me if I'm wrong, we are in the 4th year. We're going to be going into our 5th year, starting with the new fiscal year. So about this time next year, the rate plan that this council should expect to see, that would cover a 5-year period starting with the fiscal year beginning 23-24.
Right. And then just, and I know we all know the answer to this, but just so, for the benefit of our community, this SB 1383 is thrust upon cities. We don't have a choice. We must comply. The fines are rather exorbitant if we don't comply, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Those are all of my questions. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. And with that said, the chair invites a motion.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve resolution 22-013.
I'd like to second that motion.
All right, so we have and then also with that, authorizing the city manager to submit the NOI, et cetera. Is that part of your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. And you agree with that as a second, Member Gomez?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. We're going to now move into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Becerra.
No technical discussion.
Thank you. And Member Gomez?
Yes, in regards to this, I think if we started a pilot program and we're going to initiate something, hopefully we're able to not hurt the pockets of our residents. So hopefully this motion is something good and not something that we look in the future to remand or bring back and have to resort again.
All right. Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no comments and close the discussion period. Madam Clerk, will you kindly take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the council has taken action in accordance with the recommendation presented on the agenda. Moving on to item number 14. This is Consultant Professional Services Provider Agreement with Harrison Associates Incorporated for assistance with the preparation of general plan and housing element annual progress reports. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. As we have an approved housing element and we're working towards completing the general plan, the state has imposed progress reporting requirements to be conducted annually by cities after the adoption of these two documents, the housing element and the general plan. There's a level of complexity involved with these progress reportings. And so with that, based upon current staffing level and workload, it's envisioned necessary to bring on professional services to help satisfy the progress reporting requirements. We've structured this contract in such a way where it'd be 1 year and renewable, I believe, over a period of 7 years, certainly to the extent that we have the ability in-house as time progresses, we have the ability to throttle down in the dependency on this type of contract. So altogether, it would help us at least comply. The choosing of Harrison Associates has been recommended largely because they're the ones that have been deeply involved in the formation of those two documents, the housing element and the general plan. So with that, this item was authored by your city planner, Mr. Scott Webb. He's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
Staff recommends that the City Council approve a consultant professional services agreement with Harrison Associates, Inc. for the preparation of annual progress reports for an initial base year amount not to exceed $20,900.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, technical questions for clarification, beginning with Member Gomez.
Yes. What funding source is used to compensate the consultant?
Let's see, the code that's being used is a 100 code. So that looks like it's general fund encoded to the planning department.
To the planning department? Is that the development department? Same?
I'm sorry, planning is a division of the development department under the general fund.
Okay, and specifically for how many hours are we billing? How many months does this cover based on the year? Will there be amounts that are going to be coming forth that we won't have proration in 2022 So I'm just wondering how 20 grand goes into what? That's basically the nutshell of my question.
Well, we're not billing for, we're getting billed for services rendered, and the contract contains a scope of work, and that scope of work was formed calculating a certain number of hours that arrived at the contract price in the first year of $20,900.
So we don't know the hours that were already billed. We just know it's 20,000. I'm just trying to get a little bit of detail.
Bear with me. Yeah, so sorry. It looks like some of that detail that you're speaking to is actually provided for on page 294, which appears to be an attachment to the scope of work. And so, yeah, so that you're not seeing the 20,900 as just being a number pulled out of the air. They actually did break down based upon the nature of the reporting that the state is requiring of us. You can see as an example, the amount of time programmed in for the respective positions in their firm that are going to be required to perform the work.
So I am referring to page 294. What I see here is allotted hours. So I'm going to take it that 100% of the cost goes towards administrative personnel work. I mean, it doesn't tell me much about what work was being conducted, but kind of like how much they get paid an hour.
So there's a column in there that's entitled total estimated hours. And so in year one, I'm looking, it's estimating 119 hours. And those 119 hours are actually hours spent performing the duties in the very far left column. The far left column represents the respective duties. It's all going to be admin work. These are people that are actually helping document the performance of the city in connection with what's identified as goals under the general plan or housing element.
Thank you. What is the city doing to aid in the maximization of annual progress report APR for city officials to be aware of the new nuances and the details that are written in the APRs?
The only thing I can think of is perhaps that the results being brought back to the council. I don't know if they require council approval or if we just submit them directly to the state, but that would likely be the way they can be reported back. Mr. Webb, can you help me with that a little bit more?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Metzler. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So the state does require that the annual progress report be reported to the city council. And so in April, we have been bringing forth as part of your consent calendar, the annual progress report from the prior year. In future years, as noted in years 2 through 8, we also plan to add in a workshop with the Planning Commission so that Harrison Associates can brief the Planning Commission on their findings. We can get additional feedback on how they further like us to implement the general plan and the housing element for the upcoming year. So it's we're meeting the minimum requirement by reporting it to the council. This scope of work takes it a step further by engaging the Planning Commission in years 2 through 8.
And in this proposal, where can anyone find how land use decisions related to the goals and policies are explained? It used the word should, which modal means it's not obligatory. So I figured I would ask the question. I didn't see that portion.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what.
My question is, in this proposal, where can anyone find how land use decisions related to goals and policies are explained?
So that's actually located within our general plan. The general plan goes over the goals and policies in great detail.
Okay, thank you. And how is the Bear Valley Development Bond continuing disclosures helpful to the professionals with the general APRs and the measures that are found in the general plan in context with the submission of this annual
time is up.
report?
So that item is unrelated. We included that item in the staff report to outline different services, different scopes of works that are specialty works being undertaken by Harris. And we wanted to share that information with you to show that this same firm is also being relied upon to provide this specialty work in the progress reporting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. I understand that this firm, this professional services provider, provides us with some specialized services. I do have a question. Does my math serve me correctly? Have we spent more than $500,000 with this particular firm? And if so, it seems that we're going to have a long relationship in this area, and perhaps with this firm. When do you foresee us meeting the $1 million threshold?
I'd have to calculate that out. I think why it looks large as it's laid out in the staff report is because there's one big ticket item, which is the general plan update and the environmental assessment. Scott, I believe we're going to be done with that this fall, sometime latter part of this year. And so ultimately that would fall off as a big ticket item. The CREA ultimately falls off as well as a big ticket item. So after we get out of, this year, for example, the recurring work that we do envision relying on them unless we have a need to cease the relationship and or bid the services again. The ones that we foresee continuing would be the continuing disclosure reports, these progress reports as an example, and there's some housing successor stuff that they've definitely been helpful to us on.
So I guess we don't know, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'd have to
Okay.
do a calculation to figure
Fair
out when we
enough.
get to
I do have a question though. Is it customary for municipalities to spend over $500,000, maybe $1 million with one particular service provider? And if so, is that a best practice? And this firm may be the only game in town, pardon my vernacular, but if that be the case, you get what you pay for. But if this is the only thing happening in town, this is the firm that can do this work. Not that I'm dissatisfied with the firm. I'm just saying, is that customary?
I wouldn't say that it's not common. I've certainly seen it, and we've seen it here in the city before. I think what's particularly kicked things off in this regard is when we went through the public solicitation process for the larger project, which was the general plan and the housing element. I don't remember the exact number of respondents to that. Not to say that we selected them because they were the only one. I don't believe that was the case. But we did have a difficult time finding professional firms, in large part because so many cities were dealing with the same issue as us, is trying to meet some of these deadlines and getting the housing element and general plans updated. But it's also lent itself to us getting to know that firm better, and then adding on services that certainly they were able to exhibit proficiency in conducting for us.
Okay, well, I don't have the prior knowledge or the background knowledge, but what firm, obviously, we're a longstanding municipality and we've dealt with this issue before we entertained Harrison Associates. Who did we do business with before? I'm just curious.
On the fiscal advisory stuff, I would call it, and that would speak to, say, the housing successor agency work, the Old Town CREA stuff, the continuing disclosures, the residual receipt subsidy analysis. I could see those four that I'm looking at on the table as traditionally been handled by a firm in the past called RSG. And we actually worked with them up until a few years ago for maybe 25 years.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, and I'm going to touch on it. When we went out to bid, and you touched on it, we went out to bid for Harrison Associates. There was specific deadlines, specific guidelines, and specific things that had to be done. So we went out to bid like we do all other things, 3 bids, lowest bidder, or the bid that could meet our needs, correct?
Yes.
And the reason why this is coming back at $20,000 for transparency of how much and everything they do for us throughout the year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's it. No further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Member Becerra. All right, and just a little bit of follow-up on questions from my colleagues. So I guess the first one is, this is the first time we're having to do this. Victorville has not had to provide APRs in the past.
Mr. Webb?
That is somewhat correct. So as a charter city, we were not required to start submitting APRs until I believe it was 2018. But since then, the state has added like 6 legislative actions that ramped up the requirements for these progress reports. So we were faced with trying to do it ourselves, and then also having the influx of new development. So having Harris step in, who's done this for numerous cities and understands the recent legislation, makes sense for the planning department at this time. But to answer your question simply, no, we were not required as of earlier than 2018, but it is kind of an evolving reporting requirement that the state tracks. And if this city does not submit these annual progress reports, we could lose our certified status with our housing element.
All right, and so, I mean, we're looking at 20,900 for 2022, 32,580 for 2023. For 2022, was this part of our budget process? It doesn't ring a bell to me in the last workshop.
So I can answer that. So within the planning department's budget, we did set aside $40,000 for contract services that we haven't tapped into yet. That was assuming that a scope of work such as this would come along. We did contract with Harrison Associates the prior year to do the annual progress report, which they submitted on time and did not have, we did not receive any comments from the state on our submittal.
Okay, and then is it fair to say that Harris and Associates is the logical choice on this since they did the work on the housing element and so forth?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Those are all of my questions. And at this point, I will invite a motion from the council.
So move, Madam Mayor, to follow staff's recommendation and approve the Harrison Associates agreement.
Second that motion.
Thank you. We have a first by Member Becerra, a second by Member Gomez. And we're going to take discussion on the pending motion. Member Becerra?
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
Not at the moment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
None, ma'am.
Thank you. And the chair has none. Discussion period's closed. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the council has adopted staff's recommendation as presented on the agenda. Moving on to item number 15. This is the award of construction agreement to Pacific Utility Installation Incorporated for the substation expansion project and Circuit 40 and 50 extensions at the Southern California Logistics Airport. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. So this is a subject we've been dealing with recently, and we dealt with this back on February 1st, where we actually approved an agreement with Southern California Edison, which effectively provided for us through our interconnection relationship with them to move forward in expanding the capacity on the 33 kV line that is the primary feed to service electricity to our customers at SCLA. So with that, we've actually gone through the bid process to bring on a contractor to undertake the physical work, which is basically improving the circuitry along our side of the system. Edison will have its own work to do on its side of the interconnect. But basically, this is kickstarting our effort to improve the capacity altogether to keep up with the growth that's occurring out at SCLA. The author on this item is your Director of Electric Utility Services, Ms. Brenda Hampton. She's available for any questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
That the Honorable City Council approve the award of a construction agreement to Pacific Utility Installations, Inc. in the amount of $3,459,220 for the SCLA Substation Expansion and Circuit Upgrade Project ES 22-053.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, with that said, we're going to take technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report with a keen eye certainly on the award of the construction agreement. And we'll begin this time with Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Becerra.
Mr. Metzler, would this expand our be able to expand our services for future growth at the airport?
Yes, it will.
That's it. No further questions.
Thank you. All right, Member Gomez.
Yes, at what rate have we calculated the expansion growth of SCLA that we're keeping up with by the use of today's, trying to approve this award contract agreement? Do you understand the question? Do you want me to re-ask it?
No, I think I understand it. And I don't exactly know what growth rate we've measured or used to measure our existing usage and over time. What I can tell you is that our current capacity allowance under the previous interconnect was 18 megawatts of service, and we've actually reached a peak load this last summer in the order of 15.3. We've been seeing our growth on the peak growing at a pretty hefty rate, to the point where I think what we're trying to illustrate is you're getting really close to the 18 megawatt capacity allowance that was previously granted to us. That's why we brought the interconnect back in February, which actually gives us an allowance up to 40. These are actually undertaking the physical improvements necessary to actually flow the 40 megawatts of electricity through that system, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. And the chair has no questions and invites a motion from the council.
Madam Mayor, move to accept staff's recommendations for item 15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a first by Mayor Pro Tem Irving, a second by Member Becerra. Discussion on the pending motion, Mayor Pro Tem.
Pardon me, that was Councilmember Gomez.
Was it the same?
Oh, at the same time?
It was at the same time, so yeah.
Okay, so we'll recognize Becerra second.
I have Member Becerra. Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem Irving, thank you. Member Becerra?
No further discussion.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
No.
Thank you. And the chair has none. Discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we have adopted the recommendation as presented on the agenda. Moving on to item number 16. This is the consideration of allocating funds to the California Route 66 Museum through the American Rescue Plan Act. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. This item is being brought to your consideration, seeking the use of ARPA money to help one of our longstanding businesses in the Old Town area, particularly the Route 66 Museum, which actually operates in a nonprofit status and has been operational in Old Town since 1995. The Route 66 Museum has been huge for us in helping promote a sense of culture and history that is connected to Route 66. And unfortunately, directly related to COVID, has seen its visitor population drop dramatically for obvious reason. Their typical visitor population in a year could be as much as 65,000. And I think the last measure that the museum shared with us was actually seeing about 3,200 coming through their facilities dating back to the start of the pandemic in March of 2020. So with that, we've been approached by the Route 66 Museum asking for help, particularly to keep their doors open. They have in fact struggled keeping their doors open, keeping employees, volunteers have been increasingly dependent upon just to keep the operation running. Largely hoping that they can get back up and running and start bringing visitor traffic back through the Route 66 Museum doors and into Old Town. That's certainly expectation they have to begin this April. So with that, recognizing that the council had previously authorized ARPA money to be used to help support community and small business recovery, we were approached by the Route 66 Museum. We actually worked closely with them to understand the extent of their operation, the extent of their issues. We went so far as to review all their financials, and largely because I think the biggest motivation for us as staff in reviewing their operation is because of the scene importance we have seen them play in Old Town and actually preserving a sense of history that's connected to Route 66. We're certainly fearful that without their efforts, that could potentially be lost. And at this time, we think more than ever, that's something that should be preserved, especially as we're putting so much time and attention to trying to revitalize Old Town. So with that, we'd actually gone through all the financials. We're able to actually quantify a direct impact revenue loss associated with the COVID closure. And with that, we've actually come forward and made a recommendation to provide assistance to the order of almost $32,000 to keep those doors open, allow the museum to begin operations once again, and even be able to hire staff so that they can transition from volunteers into actual paid employees running the operation. You do have Miss Sue Bridges here in attendance on behalf of the Route 66 Museum. She's certainly available for any questions or comments you might have of her directly related to the museum. Also assisting me on this matter is Mr. Tony Camargo. He's the staff analyst that works with me in the city manager's office. He's also available for any technical questions or comments you might have.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, the recommendation, please.
That the Honorable City Council authorize staff to proceed with the allocation of funds to the California Route 66 Museum in the amount of $31,336 through the American Rescue Plan Act.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, questions for clarification, Member Becerra.
No questions, Madam Mayor. Just a comment in the sense, I don't know if any of my other colleagues have been there, but I've been there a couple of times. It's a good museum. It has a lot of history from Victorville in it.
Yep, thank you, Member Becerra. Member Gomez.
Yes. My questions, please bear and please answer them as directly as possible. This is nothing beyond what maybe was already stated, but I already had these questions made here. So who made the executive decision to add this item on the agenda with the funding to go to this precise source?
I did.
Who was it that determined the funds to go to this property with these exact dollars?
I did, along with the assistance of staff.
And was there an application process in place for other properties who serve the public to show the need to consider them for ARPA funding as well?
There's not an application process. We have made announcement through action of this council of these types of funds being available for the certain purposes that we approved. We have done direct outreach, more so related to our utility assistance program, and that was fairly well subscribed. This one was brought to our attention, and because it was brought to our attention based upon just the general awareness of these funds being available to offset COVID impacts, we certainly felt this one required some special attention, and largely because of the preservation of history goals that we have, also with respect to the goals that we have in trying to revitalize Old Town.
And are these stipulations or conditions for the museum to follow beyond those from the federal regulations? Well, federal regulations. In other words, since we are, I would consider entitled or going to provide these funds, did we add extra conditions or extra anything, or we're just leaving it as is with what the federal government has posed?
These are serving simply as grant funds.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that again?
They're serving as grant funds. We're not placing any restrictions on them.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to say I'm not opposed to helping the Route 66 Museum, but I do have a couple of questions. You list 4 criterion that allow us to assist businesses and so forth. In your view, or perhaps staff's view, I'm not really sure, but which criterion allows us to assist? Is it which one? Because you've listed them here.
Yeah, and I would rely on the very first one.
Okay, and my second question is there an objective process in place for other businesses or organizations to request assistance and be granted funding?
Yeah, just
call you?
contact us. Yeah, contact the city
Okay.
manager's
All
office.
right, just want to know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, and just a quick question. The museum has traditionally, I mean, with the exception of, I think, maybe very few paid employees, has largely been run by volunteers. Is that?
It's surprising. It was surprising to us to learn how much volunteerism is relied upon to run that organization.
Okay. All right, and certainly I echo the sentiments of Council Member Becerra with regard to the value of this organization, it being a good organization. So with that said, I'm going to invite a motion from the council.
Motion to approve, Madam Mayor, staff's recommendation.
Okay, the chair is going to second that. And discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Becerra.
For discussion, thank you.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
No.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to just briefly comment that I think this is a worthy endeavor. It looks like we have consensus on this. We'll find out in a moment. But Route 66 Museum has provided an invaluable service to our community. I think it's in line with the kind of services that we would receive from a library and so forth. They really are the keepers of our city's history. And without this museum, our city, in my view, would be, well, it would certainly be worth less than its salt. So I'm happy that this is being considered. Route 66 Museum, the volunteers there have sacrificed a lot of their time, and I think that some individuals have certainly sacrificed a lot of their personal lives to keep this organization alive and well, and I applaud them. All right, with that said, the discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The council has taken action in accordance with the recommendation presented on the agenda, and congratulations to the Route 66 Museum. All right, we're now going to move on to our final items on the agenda. That's item number 17, City Manager Reports. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. We touched on it just briefly, but I just got to highlight it. and give its own attention. But our city recently adopted the housing element. As you know, we just got our state certification back, and we're one of very few cities in the SCAG region that's actually gone through the process to actually get its state certification for the housing element. So a lot of hard work, both at the staff level, but also at the planning level, and even here at this level to get to this point. So that's a major accomplishment. We've got a couple of projects. The speed wash located at 15250 Palmdale Road was finalized on February 9th. We also had a permit issued on February 10th for an industrial center warehouse at 12454 Industrial Center Drive. That's a 32,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial warehouse building. So we're still seeing development activity remaining strong throughout the community. That's all I have at this time, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 18, this is discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. We'll begin with Member Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, I don't know if this has to go through you. Reports from the Planning Commission, do those come to us directly? Should we be getting with our planning commissioner that we nominated? I don't know where the line rests of where we can talk to them, or no, we should be getting a report from them. If we need to have it brought for a vote, then that's why I'm asking.
Well, I know we normally send out after the actual planning commission meeting, minutes resultant from those meetings. I believe you're on the distribution, but if you're not, I'll certainly double check to make sure that you do get those. I'm not aware of anything that would prohibit you from talking directly with your appointed rep on matters that may be of interest after the fact.
And that's what my question was. So I can, okay, thank you. Nothing else, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, I'd like to pose a motion to have a workshop review for the current policies in the next 60 days, somewhere in May 2022.
Can you clarify your motion?
Yeah, it's just to revisit the policy manual, revisit in a workshop setting so that if there's anything that we can contribute or whatever, it's usually done twice a year, and I don't think we've had any this year.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And so just for clarification, we just did in March, we did a global review of the policy manual. We could certainly do that again if it's the desire of the council. Normally, when we do this, we direct the city attorney and the city manager to go through that and work with council and so forth to bring forward any suggestions. So is that what you had in mind, Member Gomez?
What I had in mind was more or less to have the council fully involved, because in the past, when you have the city attorney and the manager and it comes to us, it's just convoluted and it's hard to understand what's being stated. So if we had the opportunity to say, well, these changes in an open forum, it would just be more easy for the council to know what policies are changing or not.
So I just want to make sure that we're very clear, because what we've received in the past was always like a red line draft, comes to the council has reviewed it, asked questions, and they revise or adopt or not adopt. So that's what's worked very well for the council over the course of time, and I would certainly be willing to vote that way if that's your intention and that's Mayor Pro Tem's intention.
Are you asking me for?
Yeah, I would want to follow the same process that we've done in the past. So is that what you're willing to look at?
It's my understanding that in the past, any kind of redlining, well, that's not a good term, but any kind of modification was done behind office, and then it was brought to us. And so that makes it kind of difficult. So what I was asking is to have us actively engaged in what was being determined. That way it was clear.
So you want to do a live revision of the policy manual line by line, much as was attempted, I think, when the policy manual was first being established?
Yes,
Okay, and that's when a couple council members walked out
I don't know
because
what
it was so
happened.
unwieldy. Okay.
I don't know.
So, all right, so is that what you want to second, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, but I have something that I would like to agendize. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I support it.
But this would be a global review.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay.
That makes sense, especially
So,
since I'm new or kind of new.
right, and you wanted that brought back when, Member Gomez?
Well, I said 60 days and I said May 2022, just because putting a date asserts if it passes, it would go through.
Okay, all right. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
No.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
No,
Tie vote, motion fails.
thank you. Member Gomez, did you have any other requests?
Yes. Motion to bifurcate the water and the trash bill so that they're independent from one another.
So you want that considered? Okay. Thank you. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Any other requests?
Yes. A proclamation for this month to be recognized by the city as Black History Month is my motion.
I second that.
Thank you. We have,
Question, Madam Mayor?
yes.
Who would the proclamation go to?
It could go to the National Council of Negro Women.
That one I agree with, as long as
I
it,
would go ahead and alter it to include what Leslie Irving just stated.
but who, okay, so then who else would it go to?
You could also go to the the NAACP. Are you
So-
asking her?
No, I'm asking you, so who do we
Let's
invite
present it to
come?
the NAACP on January the 27th, Sunday at 1:00.
I'll back that motion.
I will
If
also
That's a
include,
substitute motion.
I will also include that as part of the addition to the motion that I placed on the floor.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, we take the vote on the motion as amended.
I just have a quick question. Oh, she said January 27th. Would that,
Oh, correct. Yes.
okay,
Oh, excuse me, February 27th, forgive me. I'm sorry.
okay, thank you.
Yesterday was Valentine's. How dare I?
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Member Gomez?
Yes, a motion to ensure that the agendas are more user-friendly, including any visual cues and statistical analysis and charts that help with its quote-unquote digestion.
Is there a second?
Can you clarify your motion?
Yes, I was trying to follow the general plan and the APRs. Had there been some kind of box plots or histograms, it would have been much easier for a 500 and 600 page to kind of like really skim through, grab the information. But there's so much frozen text and wording that it gets lost in translation. What is being stated is very interpretive.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for clarification. Mr. Metzler, is agenda review during working hours offered to all council members?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies. Member Gomez, any further requests?
No, that was the last one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
Yes, I have one request. I'd like to make a motion or ask that we entertain revisiting Chapter 8 of the Council's Policy and Procedures Manual. There are some reoccurring complaints in the community that we are engaging in subjective decision-making as it relates to letters of letters of recognition, proclamations, certificates, and so forth. So I move that the council, by the first council meeting in April of 2022, staff returns with recommended revisions to Chapter 8 for discussion and possible action, and that those revisions eliminate the utilization of subjective reasoning in the decision-making process for granting letters of recognition. certificates and proclamations for individuals and organizations, and create a more objective process where every council member can grant requests for letters of recognition, certificates, and proclamations to meet citizens' requests. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a question for clarification so that it will help me. So you said that there's reoccurring concerns from the community. Has there been an attempt to resolve this internally?
There are people out there that are saying about you, Mayor Jones, that you're engaging in, I guess what you would call discriminatory practices. I disagree. But I
sure
do
do too.
I do. I disagree. But I did take a review of Chapter 8. It does seem a bit subjective, and it's not clear that there's an objective process that's easily understood for granting ceremonial certificates and so forth.
And you would want this to
And
be
I don't want people saying that about you.
Well, I appreciate
because I
that.
don't agree.
I don't agree either, and I do appreciate that. So you would want, so the motion is to make this granting by all council members?
Or at least there should be an objective process where we also can partake in it, because I'll give you an example. If there's an organization, we don't want to get into that. Okay, very good. All right, I'm sorry. That's the motion. I would ask my colleagues to support me.
I'll go ahead and second that
Thank
motion.
you. We have a first and a second. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, if I may ask Mayor Pro Tem a question?
Yes.
Mrs. Irving, the question is, you just want to review it or you want to bring it back so it's already changed?
I want it to be revised so that
with
there
our
is a
input?
process involved where we partake in it. I'll give you an example. I have no idea how many people have made a request, how many people were granted or organizations were granted their requests, and how many were denied. And if they were denied, why were they denied? But set that aside. Citizens don't understand. So that's why I think there's a lot of hoopla.
Okay. All right, thank you. And just to be
You want me
clear-
to go further?
No, because we're going to make this an agenda item, and we're going to get into a danger zone. Mr. DeBortnowski, is that fair?
Yes, we're starting to actually discuss the issues related to the item. So
Right.
the question should be whether or not we just want to put this on the agenda and then discuss it in the public.
Okay.
Right. And so, Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to take the vote. I do want to state for the record, I have never denied anyone a certificate. All right, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes.
Mayor Jones.
No.
Motion passes with Mayor Jones voting no.
Thank you. All right. And with that said, I have no requests to make, and we're going to move on to item number 19. This is our reports from council members. We're going to begin with Member Gomez.
Yes. So I'll start off by saying, first of all, happy Valentine's Day. Want to continue making myself available to the public. I continue to visit one-on-one families. I continue to assist with addressing issues that are of concerns to them. I'm available to write multiple emails, and that's what I've been doing to multiple agencies in regards to public safety and public concerns and the welfare of what my constituents believe that may be a detriment. As a matter of fact, after a handful of residents this year attempted to have their concerns addressed, they were unaddressed in a very untimely fashion. This meant that the residents and the property owners had contacted external agencies since February 2021 to no avail. I was happy to step in and to ensure that documented emails were sent to the various agencies. Please know that I am at your reach as a community member as well. 912-3190 with area code of 760 is my personal cell phone to reach out to me to help with complaints, concerns, and various of other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Becerra.
Just reporting that a lawsuit that was filed against us as the city and city and council was my first. I was only here a week and I was already sued. Was dropped in federal court, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Nothing else, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you, Member Becerra. So I just have a few things, if my colleagues will bear with me. So I attended the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority meeting and also the SBCTA General Policy Committee meeting. And the Mojave Desert and Mountain Recycling Authority JPA board, which I chair on, is the city is moving in the right direction towards compliance with SB 1383. And we've have already engaged in an MOU with High Desert Second Chance to structure a comprehensive edible food recovery program. And we've now just approved an MOU with Fine Food Bank to assist the areas in 29 Palms, Yucca Valley, and county communities. So we're on the right track with that. And then I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I do participate in ongoing teleconferences with San Bernardino County Supervisor, Chair Hagman, and mayors regarding COVID updates and so forth. And then I attended the ribbon cutting and grand opening for Dr. Josephine Corona of Desert Valley Hospital and Medical Group. And then also I have to offer my special thanks to Councilmember Becerra for attending the ribbon cutting for Desert Community Bank in my stead. My General Policy Committee conflicted with that, and also Mayor Pro-Tem wasn't available to participate in my stead for that event. So again, thank you, Councilmember Becerra. And with that said, that concludes our business for the evening. And as a matter of housekeeping, all council members, staff, and audience members will kindly vacate council chambers in City Hall within 10 minutes. That's 8:12 p.m. so that these facilities may be cleaned and secured for the evening. Members of the public are not permitted behind the dais. And with all of that said, thank you for a very productive evening, everyone. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. We appreciate you very much.